Listen, Oakland PD. Sir, keep your hands where I can see them.
They're right here, officer. Just coffee and Wi-Fi.
You match your description. Need to see some ID?
Sure thing. Wallet's coming out slow. ATF, undercover.
Name's Marcus Ellison.
Buckley, what's happening?
Said he's ATF, Sarge. Badge looks
good.
legit,
Back
but
off.
Copy.
Sorry for the interruption, sir. We just have to stay vigilant.
They dragged a quiet black man out of a tiny Oakland cafe like he was some dangerous animal. They pushed him, yelled at him, called him a liar, and tried to force him on the ground. People filmed it from every corner, voices shaking, hands shaking. But what those cops didn't know, this man they were roughing up? He wasn't a criminal. He wasn't even an ordinary man. He was a federal agent, one of the best, and when the truth came out, the whole cafe went silent, and the officers' lives changed in seconds. Before we dive deeper into this wild story, make sure you subscribe to the channel and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now let's get into it. Stand up right now. Don't make me say it again. Officer Travis Buckley's voice exploded through the cramped cafe like a gunshot. His right hand hovered a little too close to his holster. His jaw was clenched tight, his buzz-cut hair shining under the neon light that flickered against the foggy windows. The cafe went dead quiet. A half-cold espresso cup trembled in the hand of an old woman near the door. A college kid in a Raiders hoodie slowly lowered his phone, not to stop recording but to make sure the lens was pointed steady at what was happening. And there, in the middle of it all, sat the man Buckley was screaming at. A quiet black man in a faded dark green hoodie. He hadn't moved. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't done anything. Yet Buckley's eyes were locked on him like he was public enemy number one. I said stand up. Outside. Now. Buckley barked again. The man in the hoodie finally lifted his eyes. Slow. Calm. Faint bags under them. His face was gentle, skin warm brown, beard trimmed close. His glasses were small and wire-thin, like something a shy schoolteacher might wear. He looked harmless. He looked soft. He looked like someone nobody should fear. His name was Marcus Ellison. And right now, the whole cafe watched as Officer Buckley towered over him like he owned the air Marcus breathed. Sir, Marcus said in a voice so soft the cafe had to lean in to hear it, I'm just drinking my coffee. Buckley laughed a cold laugh. Oh, I bet you are. You matched the description, okay? Suspicious male. Loitering. Making people nervous. I've been sitting here reading, Marcus replied. Don't care, Buckley said, gripping Marcus's shoulder and squeezing it harder than necessary. Outside. You can argue after I check you. A ripple of shock cut through the room. Someone whispered, why's he going after him? He didn't do anything. Another person whispered back, because he's black. That's why. Marcus let out a slow breath, trying not to spark something bigger. But the damage was already done. Marcus Ellison did not look like someone important. He wore old sneakers with torn edges. His hoodie had a bleach stain near the pocket. His backpack looked like it had survived 20 years of bus rides. He looked like a man trying to blend into the world and never bother anyone. But inside that backpack, tucked behind a paperback book and an empty lunch container, was his real identity. A steel badge. A federal one. Because Marcus wasn't just a man drinking coffee. He was Special Agent Marcus Deshawn Ellison, 38 years old, undercover investigator for the ATF, decorated for bravery, and known by a small circle of agents as the Ghost, a man who slipped into dangerous worlds quietly and walked out with the truth. But none of that mattered to Officer Buckley. To Buckley, Marcus was just another black man sitting somewhere he didn't think he belonged. Marcus sighed. He had lived a life full of storms. Foster homes, school fights, Marines boot camp, raids in the desert, undercover missions in the darkest corners of the country. Yet somehow this moment in this tiny cafe felt heavier than all of that. Because this storm wasn't about crime. It was about skin. Buckley tugged Marcus's arm again, nearly spilling the coffee on the table. I need you to step outside right now before I drag you, Buckley snapped. Marcus didn't resist. He simply stood. Calm. Slow. Careful. He knew how cops like Buckley thought. Loud noise. Quick movements. Any sign of frustration. That was all they needed to fear for their life. Hands where I can see them, Buckley ordered. My hands have been visible the whole time, Marcus said. Yeah. Well, now they're visible for me. The cafe customers looked uneasy. Some whispered. Some shook their heads. Some raised their phones, filming everything. But none of them stepped in. Not yet. Buckley began patting Marcus down, rough and fast, like he was trying to make pain instead of trying to find anything. What's in the bag? He asked sharply. Books. Lunch. Open it. Marcus's jaw tightened. I don't consent to a search. Buckley grinned. Look at you throwing big words around. He turned slightly toward the people watching. Folks, this is what happens when someone acts suspicious. The room felt sick. Marcus swallowed back the anger in his throat. He wanted to say, suspicious? I serve this country. I bled for it. I hunt men who move guns into your city. I protect people like you. But he said nothing. Staying silent was part of the job. Even now. Even when humiliation burned his skin. Buckley grabbed the backpack anyway. I said I don't consent, Marcus repeated quietly. And I don't care, Buckley spat. He unzipped it halfway. Then something happened. Marcus's hand shot out, not fast, not violent, just firm enough to close the zipper before Buckley could open it fully. The cafe gasped. Buckley froze. What did you just do? He hissed. I told you, Marcus said, locking eyes with him now. You do not have my consent. Buckley stepped back and put a hand on his gun. Put your hands where I can see them. I never moved them, Marcus said. Put them up. Marcus lifted them slowly. The whole cafe shook with tension. Buckley spoke into his shoulder radio, voice urgent and dramatic. Dispatch, this is Officer Buckley requesting immediate backup. Suspect resisting. Possible weapon. People in the cafe groaned out loud. A few cursed under their breath. One man whispered, he's lying. That's straight up lying. Marcus lowered his eyes. He didn't want this. He didn't deserve this. But he knew how these things went. He had seen too many cases like this from the other side of the badge. Within minutes, sirens wailed outside. And 2 more officers rushed in. Sergeant Dana Klein stepped in behind them, tall, thin, pale blonde hair tucked neatly into her cap. Her voice was calm. Too calm. What's going on here? She asked. Buckley pointed. Suspicious man. Not cooperating. Could be armed. Klein's gaze slid over Marcus with cold calculation. Of course he is, she muttered under her breath. Only Marcus heard it. It was the kind of comment he had heard his whole life. Buckley smirked, thinking he had backup now. Klein folded her arms. Sir, if you have nothing to hide, you should have no problem letting us check your bag. Marcus felt the heat rising in his chest. He had stayed calm. He had stayed quiet. He had allowed too much. This had gone far enough. He lifted his eyes and said in a steady voice, Sergeant, I'm going to reach into my left pocket. Slowly. You will see something that will change everything happening right now. Buckley scoffed. Oh yeah? What, your bus pass? Klein tensed. Do it slowly, she said. Marcus nodded and reached into his pocket. The cafe held its breath. His fingers wrapped around cold metal. He pulled it out. A badge. Silver. Federal. ATF. He held it up without a single shake in his hand. And the room exploded with gasps. Buckley's face drained of color. Klein's eyes widened. Phones zoomed in. Marcus said in the calmest voice anyone had ever heard. My name is Special Agent Marcus Ellison, ATF Undercover Operations. And what you two just did is going to require a lot of paperwork. And that was only the beginning. The silence in the cafe hit like a punch. Officer Buckley's mouth fell open. Sergeant Klein blinked fast as if the badge Marcus held could not be real. The customers who had been filming leaned in closer, their phones shaking. Marcus didn't move. His badge glowed under the flickering light. The first crack in the officer's power came from Buckley. He whispered, barely able to breathe. ATF. Marcus nodded once. Yes. Buckley swallowed hard. Then the second crack came from the room itself. Someone near the back said loud enough for everyone to hear. Oh, now they're nervous. A few people laughed bitterly, others cursed under their breath. The whole room felt like it was flipping upside down. Sergeant Klein recovered first, or tried to. She stepped forward, clearing her throat. Agent Ellison, we didn't know. Why didn't you just say something earlier? Marcus stared at her through his small wire glasses. Because I don't owe anyone here an explanation for drinking coffee. Gasp. Phones trembled again. Someone said, talk your talk, man. Klein stiffened. She didn't like that people heard her being corrected. Well, she said, forcing a calm smile, if we had known. You weren't supposed to know, Marcus cut in. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Undercover agents don't shout their job every time an officer has a bad day. Buckley flinched like he'd been slapped. And, Marcus added, an undercover badge doesn't erase the fact that you ignored my rights. The cafe erupted again, not in cheers but in that raw, buzzing sound people make when they witness something powerful. Buckley tried to recover. Look, man, agent, this is just a misunderstanding. The call said suspicious and you matched the description. And what description was that? Marcus asked slowly. Buckley froze. Marcus stepped closer, just one quiet step. What exactly about me made me suspicious? My coffee? My book? My hoodie? Or was it just me? He tapped his own chest. His voice dropped to a whisper that everyone could feel. Was it just the color you saw? The room went dead again. Buckley's lips trembled. He had no answer, not one that wouldn't ruin him. Sergeant Klein cleared her throat sharply. Let's not make assumptions. Marcus turned to her. You searched me without consent. You grabbed me. You called for backup. You escalated everything before asking one real question. He paused. And you want to talk about assumptions? Klein looked like she wanted to disappear. A teenage girl recording whispered, "Oh my God, he's cooking them alive." Buckley straightened his belt nervously. Agent Ellison, we can talk about this outside. Marcus shook his head. No, we'll talk about it right here. In front of the same people who saw everything. Klein stiffened. This is highly irregular. So is targeting an innocent man, Marcus replied. People hummed and muttered again. For the first time the officers looked small, weak, and scared. Marcus finally set his backpack on the table. He unzipped it slowly. Inside was a worn paperback book, a sandwich wrapped in foil, a small notebook, and his full ATF credential case. When he opened it, the golden shield caught the light and flashed across the entire room. Klein and Buckley stared at it like it was a judge. Buckley swallowed. This is legit. Marcus met his eyes. Yes, and that means everything you did is on camera. Not just mine. Phones pointed like 1,000 tiny spotlights. Klein tried one last time to save the moment. Agent Ellison, we apologize if... No, Marcus said. Not if. He took a deep breath. You all profiled me. Buckley shook his head fast. No, that's not. You assumed I was dangerous because I'm black, Marcus said plainly. You touched me. You yelled at me. You tried to force me outside. You tried to search my bag without consent. And when I stayed silent, you escalated. Klein's face burned red. We were just responding to the call, she tried. Marcus looked her dead in the eyes. I was the call. She blinked. What? I called the cafe owner earlier to say I'd be working here for a few days. Undercover work. Quiet environment. Good for surveillance. He reported a suspicious male to keep up the cover. Marcus tilted his head. Congratulations. You racially profiled the very person you were supposed to be protecting. The room gasped so loud it sounded like a wave crashing. Buckley's knees almost buckled. Klein stared at the floor. A man near the door muttered, "Oh, that's bad. That's real bad." A woman said, "This is karma." Someone in the back whispered, "They're done." Then Marcus reached into his pocket again and pulled out a small body cam device. Not a police version. A federal one. I record every undercover location for safety, he said. Everything you did is on here too. And I don't edit my footage. Klein whispered, "Oh God." Buckley's face turned the color of ash. Marcus continued, "The city will see it. The department will see it. The ATF will see it. And every civilian's phone here will prove exactly what happened." He stepped forward. "And all you had to do was treat me like a human." Buckley blinked back something that looked like regret, but it was too late. Phones filmed his every twitch. Marcus finally took a step back. He looked tired, not angry. Tired. Like this moment wasn't new to him. Like he had lived versions of it 100 times. On streets. In stores. Airports. Parking lots. In silence. You know what hurts the most? Marcus said softly. Not yelling. Just truth. I serve this country. I risk my life in places you've never even heard of. I chase men who do real harm. And somehow a quiet black man with a coffee cup still scares you more than criminals ever will. The cafe went silent except for one shaky breath from Buckley. Marcus nodded to the cameras around him. Keep recording, he told the crowd gently. People need to see this. Klein whispered, Can you at least step outside with us to talk? Marcus shook his head. Not today. He picked up his backpack, took one last sip of his now cold coffee, and walked toward the door. People parted like he was royalty. One old woman touched his arm lightly. Thank you, she whispered. A man near the counter said, We're with you. A young boy filming with his phone whispered, You're a hero. Marcus didn't smile. He didn't talk. He just nodded and walked outside into the cool Oakland air. Behind him, Buckley and Klein stood frozen in front of dozens of eyes. Dozens of phones. Dozens of truths. Everything had changed. As Marcus stepped onto the sidewalk, the wind lifted the corner of his hoodie. He stared out at the street, the buses, the fog, the hum of the city that loved him and feared him all at once. He whispered to himself, "Power means nothing if you can't stay gentle." Then he walked away, disappearing into the morning fog like he always did, quiet, invisible, and stronger than anyone realized. If this story hit you hard, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in that cafe?